We are Southeastern 16. That's Chris Lee. I'm Chase Robinson, as we're going to talk three big questions for Mississippi State as they head into their Week 1 matchup with Eastern Kentucky. That is Saturday, August 31st, 5 p.m. on the SEC Network Plus is where you can watch that game. Mississippi State right now around a 27.5-point favorite over Eastern Kentucky. And so we'll give you three big questions coming up here in just a second. But first, let's talk Bet Online. They're the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from UFC to baseball to Formula One racing. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, you can go to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or one of the over 150 slots games. So head over to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. That is promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V. Bet Online, the game starts here. Also, if you would be interested in sponsoring any of our content here on Southeastern 16, we have some spots available. Would love to talk to you today. So you can send an email to caroline.smith@southeastern14.com. That email will get there, even though we've changed to Southeastern 16. But we'd love to have conversations with you about what it looks like to sponsor our content here on Southeastern 16. So again, caroline.smith@southeastern14.com. All right, Chris, Mississippi State, Eastern Kentucky, as we look at some questions here, a lot of questions for Mississippi State heading into this year, a lot of new. But I'll start out. My first biggest question is, what will this offense look like under Jeff-Lebby? And Jeff-Lebby, who's been an offensive coordinator, been a successful offensive coordinator, has spent the last couple of years at Oklahoma, has spent time at Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin. He's a proven offensive coordinator. This is his first head coaching job, though. But he's also going to serve as the offensive coordinator here at Mississippi State as well. So he'll be calling the plays and handling the offense. But I'm really curious what this offense is going to look like under Jeff-Lebby. He's gone out, of course. He's gotten Blake Shapen at quarterback, the Baylor transfer. He's got some guys in at receiver. But I'm intrigued to see what it looks like. How his success as a coordinator is now able to translate to Mississippi State again in a year where there is a lot of questions. There is a lot of personnel questions of who's gonna be their top targets. We'll get to running backs later on, but I'm curious of what the Jeff-Lebby era will look like in year one at Mississippi State.
Yeah, I am too, and that takes on a lot of forms. What influences does he bring with him from his previous stops at Ole Miss and Oklahoma? But I think one thing that I'm really interested in is tempo, right? Because usually when you can use tempo to keep people off balance. We've seen a lot of teams do that, but sometimes when you are perceived as under-talented, and I think you're seeing Mississippi State ranked by most of the pundits 15 of 16 teams in this league, might not always behoove you, especially based on your defensive situation. We'll get to that later. In terms of how many plays you won't run. If you're scraping to get by to as an underdog in a lot of games, you might want plays closer to 60. If you're a juggernaut, you might want that up in the 70s. But there's also the part that fast tempo can throw people off. So where does it settle in all that with the tempo? How does it look like? What kind of decisions does he make? And maybe in week one, we don't know those things. But we will see it more in the weeks to follow. Is the easy part of the schedule is early, which I think sets up well for State. It gets them the ability to build some confidence and get some reps. But I think just the general, what does that offense look like to me is a storyline.
It is. And I think we'll learn a lot about Mississippi State, like you said, maybe in game 2 at Arizona State. But as we move through the schedule, get into the SEC portion of State schedule is what this offense is going to look like. A lot of questions again around Mississippi State. Well, what's another big question for you involving State, Chris?
Well, you've seen State have some interesting philosophies in the run game year to year. Some years they barely ran it at all. The run started making it more into part of what State did. Of course, it's apples to oranges now because Mike Leach is gone and Jeff-Lebby's system is different. And we had a year of Zach Arnett in between. But I think the part that really intrigues me the most is the who. And I'll give you a pre-camp quote from the Clarion Ledger that Jeff-Lebby said on his running back room. He said, you got a guy like Keyvone, that's Keyvone Lee, again, had a good spring. Johnnie Daniels was banged up, then had a good spring game and was good late in the spring. Jeffrey Pittman, obviously, coming back as well. And then adding Davon Booth was a big piece of it. Well, let's talk about those guys. I talked about Lee as a guy that at Penn State had a really nice game against Michigan. I think as a true freshman. Don't know why it didn't get off the ground more last year, but it didn't. He's a guy that has flashed some things before. So I think that's a guy to watch. Pittman, their leading returning rusher, 268 yards, 5 yards per carry, does catch some passes too, 13 for 91 a year ago and a couple of scores. Pass catching has been a big part of that attack in the past from their backs. Booth is a guy that I think is intriguing because last year he ran 120 times for 805 yards. That's 6.7 yards per carry at Utah State. Yes, the Mountain West is different than it's going to be in the SEC, but Utah State wasn't exactly a juggernaut either. So I don't know what kind of competition, not competition, what's kind of supporting cast he had. And then Daniels, I think, was a JUCO kid that was pretty highly regarded. He was the top JUCO running back, according to some at Kobi Lincoln last year. And so, those are four guys. And what do they look like? What's the pecking order? I think that'll be very interesting.
I think so too. And kind of getting that solidified in a game like this, I think will be definitely beneficial for State as well. What other big questions we got on Mississippi State?
Well, I think it's the defense because you start looking down the cast of guys. DeMonte Russell is going to, I think, be poised for a big year. He's one of probably the two best defenders they've got coming back. But when you start looking at their defensive front, a lot of these guys are transfers who are playing reserve roles at State or reserve roles elsewhere. So not a lot of guys that have had to be primetime guys for somebody. You do have Stone Blanton on defense, who was a productive player at South Carolina. And you have a secondary that is mostly composed of new starters. Corey Ellington is one of the two returning starters on this team, if you count Russell as a returning starter, which he was. He started 8 times a year ago. But, you got Kobi Albert from Kentucky backing him up. You've got Monte Miller, the cornerback transfer from West Virginia, who was very productive 2 years ago and was healthy. 4 interceptions, 8 passes defended. They're going to be counting on guys who are stepping, for the most part, from lesser roles to bigger roles. And I think I just want to see how they line it up. How do they establish the backups? I think on the defensive line, trying to figure that out in the summer, where they might go, who might start, who might be a reserve. Depending on where you looked, you got different answers. So to me, just the mystery of that defense and the who plugs in where and how much. And again, the opener may not be a good spot for reps because hopefully Mississippi State is winning this game if you're looking out for good things for State and is able to kind of clear the bench. But the order in which those guys run out there, to me, will be kind of interesting.
I think so too. And, a lot of talk is on the offense for Mississippi State. Obviously, Jeff-Lebby being offensive coach, but it will be interesting to see the defense as well. And we'll be here to cover it for you here on Southeastern 16. We'll have you covered not only with Mississippi State, but the rest of the other 15 SEC schools that make up the Southeastern 16. So subscribe to our channel, like this video. We bring you content for SEC football, basketball, and baseball daily here on the channel. And also we are on wherever you like to find your favorite podcasts as well. You can get our content there as well. But subscribe to our channel, like this video, spread the word about Southeastern 16 as we bring you all things Southeastern Conference. Chris Lee, I'm Chase Robinson, and we're presented by BetOnline.